Hey, Uncle Roddus back again, music lovers, with another video. This time we're back to some CDs again. Remember a couple of months back I did a CD video where I picked out a random magazine from my music magazine collections. I don't buy much in the way of music magazines anymore. I do borrow them from the library now and again and read like the uncut still from occasionally. But I have a pretty big pile from kind of 2001 up to about 2009, and then a few later on, plus some earlier ones that I've picked up. So I've done a random selection again, but I'll get back to that in a minute. Sporting my limited edition white album, Beatles White Album t-shirt again, as you can see. Well, not again, this is the first time I've worn it for a while. This is probably the 40th anniversary reissue edition that I bought quite a while back. I don't think the people that sold it to me really knew what they were selling, but as you can see, there's all the rage at the moment. This is an older version, so I see there's quite a few for sale on Facebook coming up. So anyway, so the magazine that I dragged out this time off the top of my pile, this is uncut. This is take 78 from November 2003. This is actually the issue which where I found out the death of Johnny Cash, who died in September that year, on September the 21st, September the 12th. Yeah, so that was a really sad day. I was tempted to pull out all of the Johnny Cash American CDs that I have that he did from 1994 up until his death. I pretty much have all 5 volumes plus the Unearthed box set. Have shown that before. So yeah, so the CDs that I have, so yeah, the CDs that were referenced, or albums that were referenced in here. This is only the CDs. There was one album referenced in here which I have on vinyl, not on CD, and I actually haven't pulled that out, but it's a record I've shown before, and I think that was Marquee Moon by Television, which I have a reissue. So playing in the background is this one here, the Datsun's first album. This is the only New Zealand CD referenced in that magazine that I actually have in my collection. Well, I think it's probably the only New Zealand album referenced in that uncut, full stop. Yeah, actually lately there's been, in the last uncut, there's been a last couple of uncuts, there's been New Zealand new records and CDs records reviewed and highlighted. As a matter of fact, the last uncut I read, which was from September or October this year, or whenever it was, no, actually probably even the November one, they kind of date them ahead of when they actually come out almost. Actually had album of the month was a New Zealand album, which I have a copy of coming on vinyl very soon. My wife is getting it for my birthday. Still a couple of 3 weeks away before I'll get that. But anyway, this is playing in the background. So the CD that came with the uncut magazine is this one here. Tracks, Strange Currencies they called it. Tracks compiled exclusively for uncut by REM. So REM, as you saw, were on the cover, and there is a bunch of, an article or two on them. They are the featured band. This compilation is pretty cool. I listened to it last night, although I fell asleep. I actually put it on in the bedroom and fell asleep after about the first 7 or 8 tracks, but it's got some pretty good stuff on it. I really need my reading glasses, just a moment. Okay, now I can't see the picture on the camera as clearly that's staring at me, but I can read this bloody thing. Yeah, the band, Merle Haggard, Townes Van Zandt, Big Star, the Detroit Cobras, Yeah Yeah Looking for My Baby. That is a really cool track. That was one that I really enjoyed. Oh, there's the Warren Zevon. Yeah, this is a really good compilation actually. Laura Nyro, Iggy Pop, Tim Buckley. Yeah, really good compilation actually that they picked up here. Another compilation that was reviewed in that uncut was one of these, was this one in particular. Now, Rough Trade shops. So Rough Trade was a shop, or a franchise of shops in and around London and the UK. I assume they're still going. They were going for quite some time. I think they were going from the late 70s. They also had their own record label, Rough Trade Records, which many people will know. They released a lot of punk stuff. So around, I don't know whether these are still going, whether they're still putting out them, but they were putting out, every year they would put out a counterculture compilation that they would put out, and that would be a bunch of tracks from the last 12 months, I guess, and other interesting music. I picked those up for 3 or 4 years in a row from the early 2000s, and plus I got a bunch of these other ones that were specific, and this is called Country One. Not country music, but country punk, Americana. We've got things like Giant Sand, Replacements, Violent Femmes, Meat Puppets, American Music Club, the Mekons, Green on Red, and just a heap. There's 40 tracks all up on here basically. Yeah, fantastic compilation. So yeah, rockabilly, rock punk, country punk, gun club, stuff like that. Really good compilation. Okay, so randomly CDs that were reviewed or referenced that I have. Rufus Wainwright, Want 1. Now there was actually a Want 2 and I never ever got around to picking it up. This is a CD that hasn't had a lot of attention from me. It's very lush from memory. So I only just pulled all these off the shelf last night, so I haven't listened to them, and some of them not for many years. But I remember this was pretty cool, but it was something that I really needed. It needs a lot of attention. I think there's a lot happening in it. Fantastic record, this one, Belle and Sebastian, Dear Catastrophe Waitress, from 2003. Of course, these will be all fairly current to that time. I like Belle and Sebastian. They have a real Canterbury feel to them. I mean, I think that they're kind of like a more contemporary pop version of Caravan. There's a real correlation, I think, there. I don't know, it's just a feeling I get from that music, but I've got a couple of their records, not many, a couple of their CDs. In the last magazine which I did this kind of video for with the CD selections was a Rip It Up, which is a New Zealand music magazine, which I only have not a small limited number of copies. I used to have a lot more from way back from the early 80s or even to the late 70s. I've managed to pick up a few earlier copies. It came out originally in 1977, but they're all gone now. But one album I picked out of that magazine that I have was the Strokes' first album, This Is It. Well, this magazine referenced their second album, Room on Fire. To be honest, I haven't really listened to this a hell of a lot, so I can't really say too much about it. I posted the CD of the Strokes' first album. I played it just the other day, and someone said that was their best album. But to be honest, I haven't heard any well, I've heard this one. I haven't heard any of their other stuff, but I haven't heard that one for a while. The Fiery Furnace is their first album, or first CD, from, again, 2003. This print's so small I can't even read it with my... this is actually on Rough Trade Records, can you believe? It's not unbelievable, is it? So, I haven't listened to this in many years, but it's really good. I remember it being really good, their first LP. I have their second album, their second CD, which got a lot weirder, and I don't know, I might like it a lot more than I did when I had it, but I didn't like it as much as I like this one. Because REM were on the cover, and quite a lot of their records were referenced in the article about them, so I pretty much pulled all my REM off the shelf to listen to. I was into them for a while. I think this was the latest one I have. Is it Around the Sun from 2004? So that was pretty much the last one of theirs I bought. I sort of lost interest in them a bit. The IRS Years Vintage 1987 document. This is the only one of the earliest ones that I had. I I mean, I picked up on REM, of course, really early on with the Radio Free Europe, which was one of their very earliest singles, I think, from memory, or off their first album, which had a bit of play on student radio back in the day, but I didn't really buy into their records. Yeah, so I don't know, is this a compilation? It says the vintage year. No, the IRS years vintage 1987. So I assume that all these tracks were pre-1987. Is there Radio Free Europe on here? Doesn't look like it. I haven't listened to this in many years. I really should get into their earlier stuff. Green is probably one of my favourites of theirs. When that's from what year was it? Oh, I just cannot read print on these tiny CDs. Hopeless, isn't it? I don't know. This is just before they hit the really big time, I think. And then, of course, Out of Time, which has pretty much put them into the really big time. And finally, the last one I have is theirs, Automatic for the People, which was that the one they put out after Out of Time? So it makes it, what, 2000? Oh, sorry, 1992. 92, wow, was that far back? Oh God, I'm losing track of time. That was still in the 90s, that one? 2004. Okay, so I actually did get some from fairly later on. So I don't listen to those very often at all. And also Coldplay, now I think this is their second album, isn't it? Rush of Blood to the Head. Coldplay haven't aged that well for me. I've got the first album, this one, the next one, next couple, I think. The wife's really into them. She actually likes them, so she actually plays these more than I do. But they are good albums. Okay, the last of the pile. I love this record. So I got onto this. Electric Six's Fire. There was their debut album. They've actually put out a lot of records, a lot of albums since this one. I mean, what was this? This is 2003, of course. So the actual title track, is it? Where is it? Danger High Voltage was the track. Yeah, Danger High Voltage. Saw a video of that on something on TV and really kind of blew me away and picked it up. I mean, it's a fun album and it's pretty cool. I think from what I've heard, this is probably their best one. I mean, some of the albums I've heard, downloaded them, had a play, but never really got into them, but this is pretty cool. The CD reissue that came out, and it had never been reissued on vinyl up until the time, but it came out digitally on CD, Neil Young's On the Beach. When was this released? Reissued in, oh come on, give me a year somewhere. No, can't find it. I don't know when this was reissued, but I remember reading about it in Uncut, and at the time of this reissue it had never been reissued on vinyl, and I think this was the first time it had ever come out on CD. It's a fantastic record. This is one that hasn't had a lot of attention, but I brought it on the strength of Queens of the Stone Age. The Desert Sessions 9 and 10. This will be from 2003, I guess. Yes, I've actually never seen any of the previous sessions, and I've only ever listened to this a few times, so it'll be good to revisit it. My Morning Jacket, it still moves. I haven't had it listened to this for a while. No, sorry, I tell a lie, I did listen to it recently, but I've got two My Morning Jacket records, CDs, but a band that I'm not hugely familiar with. This one won't come up very well, but this is Kings and Leon's Youth and Young Manhood. Is this their first album? Or second? I think this is their second, isn't it? Damn, I can't remember if it... I really like... Actually, this might be their first album, Holy Roller Novocaine. I really like this band from their first... Well, up until about their last album. I got their last album for a Christmas present on vinyl, but it's a really shitty pressing. It doesn't sound very good. Even after they become commercially successful, I still enjoyed their music. Like Pearl Jam, you know, I think they're a pretty good quality band in their sort of style of music they do. They don't variation from that. They're a bit more commercial now. Sex on Fire, the big track that got them really famous, is probably one of their worst, but I think overall their album's pretty good. That's the one the wife got into. I went and saw these guys live quite a while back, before, just as that was coming out, as Sex on Fire was coming out. The wife didn't want to go. I had 2 tickets and she didn't want to go, and so I ended up taking my stepdaughter, her daughter Jess, who was still in her late teens at that stage, and so she really enjoyed that. It's quite a while back now, but yeah, consistently, the sort of band that every album came out I go, doesn't sound that good, but then after I played it, would sort of worm its way into my subconscious and I really got to enjoy them. Elbow are a pretty cool band. They've got some pretty good stuff out. This is the only one of theirs I own, a cast of thousands. I think it is possibly their biggest, highest rated CD. Needs to be listened to again. And finally, one that the last one that was referenced in that. So this will keep me going for a while. Mr. Bowie, his reality CD. So the Uncut were right on the ball with Bowie after his Heathen CD came out, and they were, you know, they were really impressed with it, and they gave it a lot of hype, and I got onto that and picked it up and bought it and really enjoyed it, and then bought, this was the next one, wasn't it? Reality was the second one that he did. So yeah, those 2 albums, I'm looking forward to those coming out in a box set further down the track. And then there was a big gap, of course, between this album and his next one, which was The Next Day, which didn't come out for another till nearly 10 years after this. So of course this is 2003. Actually, must have been 12 years in 2015, 2014 it came out, The Next Day, was it? It was at least 12 months to a year, or more than 12 months before he passed on. So yeah, so good album. Yeah, anyway, the latest Bowie box set, the white one, I can't remember what it's called now. It was 80s stuff. I was tempted. Should I buy it? I mean, I've got the three first ones covering, you know, the major part of his career apart from the 60s. But I had listened to it on Spotify, and someone said, "Oh, look, the live concerts are really good," and so I had listened to them. But it's so 80s, that 80s production, that 80s sound, that slickness of it. I just and the 80s music that he put out from. I mean, we've got a copy of Let's Dance album here in the house, and it's a good album. I didn't get into it at the time, but I think it's aged really well, and the songs are so into, especially the three big hits that were played all over New Zealand. They're so in my consciousness that, you know, listening to them 20, 30 years later, it's like, okay, they're pretty cool. After that, you know, Tonight and the other whatever, because they're called now, I've had to listen to them and I just cannot get into them. The wife keeps saying, well, you know, you should get it and complete the collection. I mean, she's not going to listen to it. And I said, no, there's no point, I'm never going to play them. The next box set period, I may be tempted, but to be honest, it's the last box set which will cover, I'm hoping that they will cover Heathen, this record, The Next Day, Black Star, and some live stuff, and that would be the box set, the next box set that I'm really, really keen on getting, because I don't have any other new stuff on vinyl from this one on. I didn't get Black Star on vinyl, I got it on CD. Alright, that's me again, another prattling on for however long this has been going for. So yeah, that's my CD video, so that'll keep me going. I mean, it was a couple of months since I did the last one. It took me that sort of amount of time to kind of get through those CDs and play them all, because I still had keep plenty of vinyl coming in. So yep, that's me. See you next time.